scream, heavy in the streets.
We gon' get it, we gon' get it, we gon' get it. We gon' get it, we gon' get it. Get it in blood. Get it in blood. We gon' get it, we gon' get it, we gon' get it. We gon' get it, we gon' get it. Get it in blood. Get it in blood.
Good rich.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Saints and Appetizers podcast. And I'm Ethan, and we're back. We're back for the results show. Some more appetizers for the results show of UFC 287, Pereira versus Adesanya II. And it seems like I've been on a heater, a backwards heater, and I guess a cooler more than anything with how my picks have been going. Each pay-per-view, each event haven't been so great. Did a little bit better than the last. I guess that would have been UFC 286, but only got two right on this one on the main card. But that's not, my picks are one thing, but the quality of the cards is the next. And I said that I didn't think this was going to be a great card. It didn't have a lot of star power. There weren't two title fights on the card. And seems like every time I say a card's not so great, it ends up being great. And this was a great card. Very exciting. I can live with my picks going the wrong way when the fights go the way that they did. And a very enjoyable card to watch and very exciting. But let's get into my picks and kind of my reaction on those, and let's see. We'll get into that right now. So, can I get a menu? And the first fight on this card was I guess it was actually a catch weight of 137 because I think Christian Rodriguez was over by 1 pound. I originally thought that was maybe, I think, a bantamweight bout, but it ended up being a catch weight because of that. And so it was Christian Rodriguez versus Raul Rosa Jr., and that ended up being a unanimous decision, 29-27, 29-28, and 29-28. So it looks as if one of the judges had a 10-8 round, and that probably would have been either the second or the third round. And this fight, it looked like it was going to go the way that I thought it was going to go, because Raul Rosa Jr., he came out ferocious, trying to get the takedown and probably looking to get the finish with some kind of ground and pound or submission, because most of his wins have come that way. And I kind of looked at him going into this fight kind of like Hazmat Chimaev, in the way that he just takes people down and then tries to finish them on the ground. And kind of the beginning of the fight kind of remind me of the Hazmat Chimaev fight against Kevin Holland, where he just straight up tried to take him to the ground and then finished him with a submission. And I thought that looked like what was going to happen in this, because Raul Rosa Jr. just went all out in the first round, trying to get Christian Rodriguez on the ground, trying to finish him with a face crank or a rear naked choke. And he's a young kid. We mentioned his age, him only being 18 years old. And I think Christian Rodriguez, being 25 years old and being a little more seasoned, basically just let Raul Rosa Jr. just gas himself out. And that's definitely what happened in the first round, because then in the second round, it just looked like Raul Rosa Jr. just didn't have anything left. And then Christian Rodriguez was doing the same thing to him, was getting him down and getting some ground and pound, and got on his back a couple times and just pretty much dominated him in the second and third round. So I picked Raul Rosa Jr. To win this by submission, and it looked like it was on its way to being that way, or at least him winning by taking the fight and controlling the whole fight on the ground. But it must have been something with his stamina or something, because he was just gassed after the first round, because he was just going all out to try to take it to the ground. And you could really see that he's kind of a one-trick pony, to speak, because he barely had like any effectiveness once he couldn't get the takedown. His stand-up was just not impressive at all. I can't even say that he really even landed a significant strike in this fight after the first round, when he wasn't able to get it to the ground. But so yeah, in that catch weight of 137, Christian Rodriguez beats Raul Joseph Jr. So didn't start out quick with my picks. Didn't get one right off the bat. That a lot of times that's a sign of bad things to come. But anyways, on to the second fight on the card was a welterweight bout between Kevin Holland versus Santiago Ponzinibbio, and he won that by KO, and that was 3:16 of the third round. And this fight, for the most part, it was just kind of a kickboxing match through the majority of it. But I will say it seemed kind of like throughout the majority of the fight that Santiago Ponzinibbio, his strikes had more on them, maybe more power to them, and he was landing a lot of those calf kicks. You see, it always seems like one fighter or the other has that game plan of doing leg kicks and calf kicks and inside calf kicks, and that's definitely was probably one of the things that had Santiago Ponzinibbio up in this fight until he got knocked out, and then he just got knocked out and face planted on the ground on the canvas, and it was over at that 3 minutes 16-second mark of the third round. And he got up quickly after getting KO'd, face planting, kissing the mat. And honestly, he got saved from taking more damage, because he was about to take several more shots to the side of the head while he was just pretty much face down, ass up. And so, and I thought the tides were turning a little bit in this card, because I had actually picked Kevin Holland to win this by knockout. So that made me feel good. It's nice to have a pick where you are absolutely right. You call the winner and how the outcome of it. So that was an exciting fight. It's like basically was a kickboxing match that ended with a KO punch, leaving Santiago Ponzinibbio face down on the canvas. But he got up quickly and was disputing it and trying to say that it was an early stoppage, but it was a good stoppage. He was going to just end up taking a lot more damage if it didn't get stopped there. Okay, on to the third fight. It's a bantamweight bout between Rob Font versus Andre Yanez, and that fight ended at 5:57 of the first round and by TKO punches. And I thought Adrian Yanez was gonna make it a little more competitive than it was, but Rob Font pretty much dominated this fight for how long it lasted, and he was pretty much landing everything he wanted, and Yanez couldn't really get anything going, and it just ended up ending with another TKO punch. It was kind of a punch that Rob Font kind of blocked and dodged out of the way of what Yanez was throwing, and then he came with like this uppercut kind of hook punch and sent him flying back, and got on him and started landing some ground and pound, and it got stopped very quickly too. A lot of people were probably saying that this was a early stoppage too, but similar to Kevin Holland, Santiago Ponzinibbio fight. Like he was just going to end up taking more damage. Keith Peterson definitely allowed this one to go a little bit more, so you couldn't dispute it because he did take 2 or 3 ground and pound shots, hammer fists while he was on the ground, but it didn't go down as a straight KO punch like the Kevin Holland's versus Ponzinibbio fight. But yeah, so we were 1-2 at this point on picks because I picked Adrian Yanez to actually win this by knockout. I picked the way it was going to end, but I didn't pick the right fighter. All right, on to the co-main event between Gilbert Burns versus Jorge Masvidal, and that ended up being a unanimous decision, 30-27, 30-27, and 29-28. And this fight went pretty much exactly how I expected it to. Masvidal, he looked a little bit more impressive in the first round, really only in the first round, and it seemed kind of like he gassed out after that. And I think that's probably why you see maybe the 29-28, because maybe you could argue he won the first round, but after the first round he was getting dominated, and a lot of times he would get taken down in the first and the third round and pretty much just kind of lay there. And I will admit Gilbert Burns wasn't producing much on when he was on top, or wasn't really going for any submissions, but Jorge Masvidal wasn't doing a whole lot to get back to his feet either, which I kind of stated that's kind of one of his best assets, or used to be one of his best assets, is getting back up after being taken down, or being able to block shots for takedown. But he didn't have any of that. And honestly, I thought Jorge Masvidal just kind of looked old in this fight. He just looked tired and gassed, and was just winging punches and getting nothing but air in the second and third round. And yeah, he's going to be 39 this year, and I just thought he's, if nothing else, age, father time is what's going to take him out, and that's what it looked like in this. He didn't get embarrassed, you can't say, but he definitely was not impressive at all compared to Gilbert Burns, who is right up there with the top welterweights in the division still. And mentioning his age, he actually did retire. He left his gloves in the octagon after the fight, and I think that's probably the best choice for him, because the talent level and the skill level is too high, and that's how didn't get too many of these fights and these picks right, but I did pick this one. Once again, just like the Kevin Holland Santiago Ponzinibbio fight, I picked Gilbert Burns to win by decision, because I know regardless of the performance Jorge Masvidal put out, I knew that both of these guys are very durable, and it's very uncommon to see them lose by submission or get knocked out. Like, if they're going to lose, it's pretty much they're going to just get controlled the whole fight and lose by decision, and that's exactly what happened. So at that point, we were 2-2 and feeling okay going into the main event. So on to the main event, the middleweight title championship bout between the champion Alex Pereira versus Israel Adesanya, and that fight ended at 4:21 of the second round. And in the first round, these guys, they've already fought twice in kickboxing, and once Israel Adesanya got knocked out in their first match in the UFC, losing his belt to Alex Pereira. But so the first round just kind of looked like a kickboxing match, pretty competitive kickboxing match. Israel Adesanya caught Alex Pereira once or twice, maybe looking like it kind of rocked him, but nothing too overly damaging, and and Alex Pereira, he was doing a good job landing a lot of leg kicks and calf kicks, really compromising Israel Janaday's legs. But I would say probably the first round, Israel Janajay pretty much won what you would call just a kickboxing match. But then in the second round, Alex Pereira came out and was really aggressive and looked dangerous, like he took over the fight. It was kind of weird, and he had Israel Janajay on his bike and backing up, and then Israel Janajay kind of stopped his strategy of backing up because he knew he couldn't back up against a killer and a knockout artist like Alex Pereira. And then at that 4:21 mark of the second round, I don't know. Israel Janajay said he was playing possum. I don't know how much you can believe about that, but it looked like Alex Pereira had Israel Janajay hurt, compromised a little bit, and had him up against the cage and was hitting him with the flurry. And Israel Janajay was doing the rope-a-dope, and he rope-a-doped out the way and caught Alex Pereira with a hard shot, stumbling him back, and then hit him again and sent him to the mat, and then just straight up kill shot with one of those hammer fists. And really, when I was watching back the replays and things, it looked like most of the damage that Alex Pereira took was when he fell down after the second clean shot, like his back of his head smacked against the mat. Like that really is what seemed to have caused more damage to him than anything, in my opinion. And and that fight just had me blown away. I'll admit I picked Alex Pereira to once again. I picked the outcome, the way the fight would end. I thought it was going to be another Alex Pereira KO of Israel Janajay, but that's not what happened. It got flipped around, and that was just impressive. That was an exciting fight. And these guys, they've already fought 4 times, twice in the UFC. And a lot of people are like, oh, well, by fashion, he got knocked out because he got stoned. He got slumped just completely. He was twisted on the canvas after that. So it's hard to argue. You can argue, I guess, whether there should be a trilogy fight, a trilogy MMA fight in the UFC, or a 5th fight overall, just because of how devastating of a knockout Israel Janajay got over him. But I would like to see it. I would love to see that out of the other fighters and whatnot in the middleweight division. I think that's still the matchup people would want to see. At least that I would want to see. So let's go back over these real quick. So in the first fight was a catchweight of 137 between Christian Rodriguez versus Raul Rosa, and that ended in a unanimous decision of 29-27, 29-28, and 29-28. And sadly, I picked Raul Rosa Jr. and he did not win. And then in the second fight was a welterweight bout between Kevin Holland versus Santiago Ponzinibbio, and that finished at 3:16 of the third round by KO. And I predicted this one. I got this one right, and this was an exciting fight. That was just an impressive knockout, leaving Santiago Ponzinibbio face down on the canvas at the end. There was a funny picture out there if you go and look for it, where he's face down. Might have that as my thumbnail. We'll see. And then in the co-main event, it's the third fight, which was a bantamweight bout between Rob Font versus Adrian Yanez, ended at 2:57 of the first round, TKO punches, and I picked Adrian Yanez to win this, and I picked him to win it by knockout, but that didn't happen. He didn't get the knockout, so I didn't get that one right. And then the co-main event between Gilbert Burns versus Jorge Masvidal, ended in a unanimous decision, 30-27, 30-27, and 29-28, which I perfectly agree with. I agree with that, and that fight went exactly how I expected. Out of all the fights that happened, that's the one that if I was a gambling man, I would have gambled on that one. I would have bet on that one because that fight went exactly how I expected it to. And then in the main event between Israel Jauneget versus Alex Pereira, that fight ended at 4:21 of the second round, and by KO punches, Israel Jauneget winning and getting his title back and shooting some arrows into Israel Jauneget or Alex Pereira's heart and leaving him just plastered to the mat after the fight. And I picked it to go the opposite way. I was expecting Alex Pereira to do that to Adesanya, but that didn't happen. But really, I'm fine with all those outcomes because it was an exciting card. It was very enjoyable to watch. I think the last card there weren't any finishes on the card. I think maybe they were all unanimous decisions on the main event. So this was a big turnaround since then. So I enjoyed it. It was a fun card to watch. One of the better cards this year so far. Maybe not in superstar name, star power, but very enjoyable. But anyways, I think that's all I have for you on the UFC 287 Pereira versus Adesanya 2 reaction show. And with that, can I get a check, please?